Good morning. We're going to begin today with some singing, with a song to welcome all the possibilities of the summer. Be Open by Debbie Nargi Brown. We'll sing it through a couple times, and when you feel comfortable, you can join in. But maybe we'll review it first. The first line sounds like, be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibilities. Let's try it together. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibilities. Second line sounds like this. Aye, 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 your turn. Aye, 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 aye. Back to the beginning. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Be open for something wonderful to happen. Be open to the possibility. Aye, 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 Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Mariella Keblusek. My pronouns are she, her, and I serve as your president on the FirstU Board of Directors. We'll begin this morning with a land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our campus is located on traditional, unsurrendered, and unceded Algonquin Anishinaabe territory. The Algonquin Anishinaabe people are the customary keepers and defenders of this territory, the Ottawa River watershed. We honor their long history here, recognize the harms done to Indigenous peoples, and commit to learning from the past and walking with Indigenous communities toward reconciliation and self-determination. This work of reconciliation is a responsibility of our congregation and of all Canadians. And now for a few board announcements. As many of you know, FirstU is committed to keeping this building scent-free. Doing this requires that we all make sure there is no scent on us, our clothes, or belongings when we come here. If you have been doing this, many thanks. If not, please make it a point to do so from now on. For the second year in a row, FirstU will have a table at the Capitol Pride Street Festival during the weekend of August 29th and 30th. Our table was a big success last year, and we're looking for more volunteers for this year's table. This year, we've decided to advertise FirstU in the Capitol Pride brochure, so we expect even more visitors at our table. To learn more, see the EUU, or email diversity@firstunitarianottawa.ca, or speak to Nina, Brandon, or Chris after the service. I'll be available after the service near the information table in Fellowship Hall to talk about board activities or answer any questions or hear any concerns you might have. You'll know me by I'll be wearing a yellow vest. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Lori Foster McLeod, your worship associate. My pronouns are she and her. I'm joined in the chancel today by Lee Rose, my fellow worship associate, Jody McIntosh, our director of religious exploration, and Jen Berntson, our music director, along with the summer choir. This morning's reflection by Reverend Shawn Gauthier from the Vancouver Unitarians is about facing the future as Unitarian Universalists. It was recorded in October 2025. Other elements of today's service will relate to the themes shared in this reflection. It is good to be together today. If you're joining us online, we are glad you're with us. Please share a greeting with one another in the chat and get a candle ready to light with us. We want to extend a special welcome to those of you who are visiting us today. If you're new to FirstU, please stop by our welcome table. Over the summer, our services will center on the adjacent possible, the space of opportunities that exists for people and communities to expand and grow, exploring how that growth is often just one step away from our current states of being. As we step into those adjacent possibilities together this morning, we do so knowing that each of us is welcome. We of any heritage or faith, of any culture or race, of any gender or orientation, in any body, all that we are, whatever we are seeking here this morning, all our gifts and wounds, our laughter and tears are welcome here. Today we are part of this spiritual community. So welcome, dear friends, to our house of worship this morning. It is good to be together. May you find it a blessing. Now let us join our voices together in song. Please rise in body or spirit, and we'll sing together Break Not the Circle, which is number 323 in the gray hymnal, and the words will be up. Our centering words this morning are by Sophia Lyons-Foss, who was sort of a famous Unitarian Universalist religious educator. And they're called We Gather in Reverence. We gather in reverence before the wonder of life, the wonder of this moment, the wonder of being together, so close yet so apart, each hidden in our own secret chamber, each listening, each trying to speak, yet none fully understanding, none fully understood. We gather in reverence before all intangible things that eyes not see nor ears can detect, that hands can never touch, that space cannot hold, and time cannot measure. So I'm going to be helped with the chalice lighting today by Jody. Well done. These words are by Dag Hammarskjöld. Each morning we must hold out the chalice of our being to receive, to carry, and give back.
Good morning, everyone. I am Jody McIntosh, the Director of Religious Exploration, and I use she and her pronouns. So today I have a story that I titled The Giant Turnip Soup. And if you listen, you might kind of recognize two different stories that may have been mashed up a little bit. So long ago, in a village nestled between a river and a forest, there lived an old gardener. Now, each spring the gardener would plant some vegetables, some carrots, some cabbages, onions, and beans. But last year's harvest wasn't great, and he didn't have any seeds left to plant this year, except for one little tiny turnip seed. So that year, he tucked that little turnip seed into that soil, and he said, "Grow well, little seed. Grow enough to feed more than just me." So the rains came, and the sun shone, and the turnip grew. It grew bigger than a plum. It grew bigger than an apple. It grew bigger than a pumpkin. By autumn, the leaves themselves were bigger than a wagon wheel. The farmer couldn't believe his eyes. "Well," he said, rubbing his hands together, it's time to harvest." So he grabbed on one of those leaves, and he tugged, and he pulled, and he tugged, and he pulled, and nothing happened. That turnip would not budge. So he called for his sister to come over to help. "Hey, sister, come and help me." So she grabbed onto him, and he grabbed onto that turnip, and he pulled, and they tugged, and that turnip would not budge. So then came his grandson. So the gardener pulled, and the sister pulled, and the grandson pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they tugged, and that turnip would not budge. So they called for the baker to come from the village. And the gardener, the sister, the grandson, the baker, they all pulled and pulled, and that turnip would not budge. So then came the school teacher, and the blacksmith, and the mother carrying a baby on her hip. And then 3 children who had been out chasing butterflies came to help. And they all lined up, pulling each other, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and they pulled, and that turnip just would not budge. Just then, a stranger came along, and he said, "Hello, what's going on?" And some of the people, they were very friendly, and some of the people were a little suspicious because, a stranger is a stranger. But the old gardener wiped his brow, and he said, "We are trying to pull up this giant turnip, but even all of us together cannot do it." And the traveler laughed. "Well, then perhaps what you need is one more extra pair of hands." The smallest child counted 1, 2, 3. And everyone pulled and pulled and pulled and pulled, and pop! Up came this enormous turnip. The turnip was as big as the gardener's chicken coop. It was so big. The line of villagers had tumbled all backwards into a great heap of arms and legs and laughter when the turnip had popped out of the ground. They looked at the turnip and realized this turnip is big enough to feed the entire village, even maybe more than the entire village. The traveler stood up and smiled and said, "Now, that would make a fine soup." All the villagers looked around at one another, and one by one began to speak. "I have some onions," said the baker's wife. "I have carrots," said the teacher. "I have potatoes," said the blacksmith. "I have herbs growing in my garden," said an elder. "I have fresh bread cooling on my windowsill," said the baker. So the children ran from house to house collecting what people could spare, and soon a great kettle boiled over a fire in the middle of the village. The enormous turnip was chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped and chopped. It seemed to take all day to chop up this enormous turnip, but they finally got it all chopped up, threw it into the pot with those carrots and those onions, and then finished it off with the herbs. It smelled amazing. As evening fell, people carried benches and stools into the square. They brought bowls, and they brought cups, and they brought stories, and they brought songs. And the elders told tales of hard winters long ago. And the people shared dreams of what the village might become. Neighbors who had barely spoken all year found themselves laughing together. Children carried bowls to those who could not easily walk and get it themselves. And a place was saved, a special place was saved for the traveler. When everyone had eaten their fill, the old gardener stood. He looked around the crowded table and he said, "This turnip began with one seed, but one seed would not have been enough. It took the rain, and it took the sun, and a lot of hope and faith to help it grow. It took many hands to bring it out of the earth, and it took many gifts to turn it into this beautiful feast." The traveler nodded. A village is not made when one person does everything, they said. A village is made when everyone brings what they can and makes room for just one more at the table. And that, they said, is why the people of the village never forgot two important things. Many hands can do what one pair cannot, and there is always room for one more at the table. Thank you for listening to my story. We will now sing our beautiful child down to our RE class this morning.
Will our ushers please come forward? Thank you. Our congregation has a long history of care, vitality, and bringing people together to move the arc of justice forward. We have been able to live into our hopes and dreams because of the generosity of those within and beyond our community. Our gifts are freely given and gratefully received. We dedicate these gifts to the work of the community of faith, of serving people wholeness, caring for the planet, upholding religious freedom, welcoming the stranger, loving one another. I offer this affirmation of gratitude for the gifts shared today. Let us be grateful when we are able to give, for many do not have that privilege. Let us be grateful for those who share their gifts, for we are enriched by their giving. And let us be grateful even for our needs, so that we may be held in the generosity of others. May the work of our hands and the generosity of our hearts be given in gratitude this day.
Good morning. Happy Sunday, everyone. Each time we gather for worship, we set aside a moment to expand the caring ministry of our congregation. Together, we recognize the cycle of life and death, the circle of love, compassion, and witness that is at the center of this and every sacred community. Let us prepare our hearts for this time of sharing with the sounding of our bowl. First, a stone of sorrow and concern for all those around the world that are impacted by extreme weather and climate change, including heat waves, flooding, and wildfire. Another stone for those in our own community, including those in our congregation who have been impacted by flooding and other effects from the rainstorms on July 1st. And a companion stone of joy for the silver linings that come through adversity, including unexpected time with family, a release from obligations, and new adjacent possibilities. A stone of joy for the latest edition of the Environmental Performance Index, we're getting nerdy here, which found that many European countries continue to lead the world in reducing pollution and expanding renewable energy. Air and water quality have improved significantly over the past decade, demonstrating that long-term environmental policies can produce tangible results. And a stone of joy for all the swim docks and beaches available on both sides of the Ottawa River this summer, allowing so many more people in our community access to beautiful, safe, and refreshing places to swim. I invite you now to come forward as you feel moved to do so and share your own stones of celebration or sorrow with our caring community. And a final stone, as always, representing all that remains in the silent sanctuary of our hearts. Let us join in a moment of silent reflection or prayer to lift all that has been shared.
I'd like to welcome the summer choir up for today's anthem. Today's anthem is a piece called My Religion by Linda Smith Kohler. She's a Unitarian Universalist, and this piece of music expresses her beliefs. It's her little sort of elevator pitch for Unitarian Universalism, and expresses what her religion means to her and brings to her.
My religion is this beautiful earth, forests and fields and seas. My religion is this web of life and my connection to all beings. My religion is the wheel of the year and the moon and stars above. My religion is to hold all of this with love, love, love. My religion is this beautiful earth, forests and fields and seas. My religion is this web of life and my connection to all beings. My religion is the wheel of the year and the moon and stars above. My religion is to hold all of this with love, love, love.
Our responsive reading is by Martin Luther King, Jr., and it's called A Network of Mutuality. We are caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny.
Justice
There are some things in our social system to which all of us ought to be maladjusted. We must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. Before it is too late, we must narrow the gaping chasm between our proclamations of peace and our lowly deeds, which precipitate and perpetuate war. We must pursue peaceful ends through peaceful means. Today we are participating in the CUC National Service using resources supplied and recommended by the CUC. Our reflection today was recorded in October 2025. The speaker is Reverend Shawn Gauthier, who will be sharing his reflection, Unitarians Face a New Age. Reverend Shawn Gauthier is the settled minister at Vancouver Unitarians. Previously, he served for 16 years as the minister at the First Unitarian Congregation of Toronto. Reverend Shawn loves to travel, to take in theater and classical music, and to explore alongside his husband, Bob.
Maybe you have seen it too. For the past few months, there's been a quote circulating on social media. Everyone wants a village, no one wants to be a villager. The idea being that we're all longing for the gifts of community, the blessings and benefits that come with belonging, but that we humans are often less inclined to actually put in the effort to bring these. Maybe you have seen it too. For the past few months, there's been a quote circulating on social media. Everyone wants a village, no one wants to be a villager. The idea being that we're all longing for the gifts of community, the blessings and benefits that come with belonging, but that we humans are often less inclined to actually put in the effort to bring these gifts into being. Everyone wants a village, not everyone wants to do the work involved. I believe this to be one of the central issues of our times, an issue that is at once sociological, political, and deeply, deeply theological. It gets at the tension between the needs of the individual and the collective. It speaks to the difference between me and we. It demands to know whether we are only and ultimately in it for ourselves, or whether we truly know in the deepest places of our being that we have a sacred obligation, a great debt of gratitude to pay to our fellow creatures and to generations of life hopefully still to come. That also makes this then an urgent existential issue and a central defining concern for us as Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists, if we are to have a relevant and compelling sense of purpose in a radically changing world. This is no idle concern, not as we today face a real reckoning with history. Much has been said of late about the hinge moment through which we are living, this age of anxiety that we are in, as we face a convergence of challenges some rightly call a time of polycrisis. This complicated moment when we are confronting the early but truly brutal consequences of climate catastrophe, the further unraveling of late-stage capitalism, the legacy of systemic inequalities, the largely unchecked threats of artificial intelligence, and the rise of authoritarianism and decline of democracy that now threaten so much of life as we know it, and especially for those at life's margins. There are myriad directions these compounding crises may take us in the years to come. But I believe almost all of these directions involve at least a generation of struggle ahead, with impacts that will threaten the livelihoods and the very lives of people around the planet, as we are already witnessing. Of course, for countless souls around our globe, there's already been plenty of struggle, and for far too long. For those of us who live in relative comfort, this present moment is asking, and it will continue to ask relentlessly, who we are, who we truly are, and whether what we say and what we do are in fact worthy expressions of the values that we profess to hold. This collision of pressing issues comes at an arguably inconvenient time for our movement. Across Canada and the United States, many, if not most, of our congregations, with some shining exceptions, are in a state of sure and steady decline, with falling levels of attendance, engagement, and financial support. We are also experiencing a clear and concerning trend as fewer people are willing or able to do the volunteer work required to keep our villages going, and as fewer people are willing to commit their working lives to serve as ministers. There are many complicated reasons for all of this, not least the changing context of the wider world. In the face of these harsh headwinds, what most of us have known and loved in this movement of ours, what we have likely assumed will always somehow endure, is in a decline that mirrors the trends in most of mainline Protestantism. Unless something dramatic happens, unless we take bold action and make real changes in the next few years, I suspect many of our congregations will be gone in a generation, if not sooner. As I say, fortunately, there are encouraging signs of hope, promising pockets of flourishing that point to new ways of being and gathering that go beyond the congregational forms that are known to so many of us. The UU movement of the future will likely look different in significant, but hopefully more life-giving ways. As we imagine the future, though, there is also value in drawing on our past, on looking back to take in the lessons of our ancestors. In the mid-1930s, a group of people came together to take a good hard look at the state of Unitarianism in their time in both the US and Canada, and then to chart a course for the future as best they could envision it. They were given a very catchy name, the Commission on Appraisal. Isn't that something? And their transformative report was titled, Unitarians Face a New Age. Take in these words written 9 decades ago that open their report. The first question which the members of the Commission on Appraisal decided must be answered, if their inquiry was to have practical value, was whether the organized religious movement known as Unitarianism has any real function to perform in the modern world. If not, it would clearly be better to liquidate the present organizations and resources, for the mere continuation of any institution after it has ceased to meet a real need is wasteful. And for this to happen to an institution calling itself liberal, they said, would be a tragic irony of fate. Now, they really weren't beating around the bush, were they? Those were just the first 2 sentences. They then go on to say this: if this question is to be answered in the affirmative, if we do have a practical purpose, it must be in different terms from those in which the function of Unitarianism was defined 100 years ago, or 50, or even 25. The genius of this movement has been in our power to adapt the vocabulary and practices of a religion whose roots are sunk deep into the past to new knowledge, new conditions, and new situations. If this genius should fail us now, they said, the time will come to write finis to the story of Unitarianism. And then they describe the challenges of their era, the mid-1930s, in this way, with words that eerily echo down to us today. In a time when revolution and chaos are everywhere threatening, when ideals are again forming an alliance with tyranny and dogmatism, when intellectual confusion and social discontent are blindly trying to fight their way out of situations where the only problem-solving temper of mind can be of real help, when fresh births of the nationalistic spirit is everywhere, offering its spurious comfort to tired and discouraged people. In a time like ours, there is an imperative need for a religious fellowship that will bring order and hope and confidence to all people of the liberal tradition. These are powerful, passionate, and provocative words. Words that I believe are as important for our time as they were for theirs. Written in 1936 between the two great wars, in the wake of the Great Depression, with the worrying rise of fascism and without full knowledge of the horrors yet to come, these, our spiritual forebears, dared to ask whether there was a worthy and compelling purpose for Unitarianism still to exist. And they boldly declared, after squarely facing the hard realities their congregations faced in their own time of declining attendance and engagement and financial support, that their tradition, that our tradition, that this tradition did indeed have a reason not merely to survive, but to thrive in response to the current conditions of. Now, I will be the first to admit that reading 90-year-old bureaucratic church documents is almost no one's idea of a good time, except for mine and Catherine's, apparently. It's good stuff. And yet, I am deeply moved by the vision and commitment that came from this report that paved the way for our merger with universalism, that inspired us to build bridges of understanding with other religions, that breathed life into new approaches to religious education and led to the birth of Loretta, that empowered youth and young adult movements in our tradition, that sought to lift up the ministry of lay people at least as much as the ordained, and that spurred us at long last to clearly articulate our core values, giving rise to our beloved principles we know today in both the US and Canada. Written in profoundly troubling times, this report arguably helped to give us at least another century of vitality. It brought about a revolution in Unitarianism, and some 9 decades later, I believe that we are long overdue for another. While some of this revolution will no doubt be institutional, involving new organizational structures and updated bylaws, the real revolution that is before us, if we are to thrive, will ultimately and always be one of the heart. Over the past 2 centuries, since the founding in 1825 of both the British and the American Unitarian Associations, the 2 denominations that gave birth to this congregation and most of the other UU congregations across Canada, our movement has taken across those 2 centuries many different roles in the service of religion. Early on, we Unitarians offered a rational approach to Christianity, challenging traditional doctrines and societal norms. In the middle of the 19th century, we celebrated our sacred connections to nature and began redefining our experience of the divine. By the 20th century, we embraced a theological pluralism that centered humanism while focusing on social justice with the sure and certain hope of loving the hell out of this world. And in more recent years, we have begun to grapple with what it truly means to move beyond mere tolerance of human difference, to understand the colonialist systems of oppression that must be dismantled, starting within ourselves and our institutions. Yet, so much of our work across the centuries has been firmly and famously rooted in the intellect. Now, if we are to have any real function to perform in the modern world, it is time to expand the capacity of our hearts to meet the challenges of this moment that we are in. A time when compassion and generosity will need to answer human cruelty and government austerity. A time when our deep commitments to understanding and acceptance will need to answer efforts to divide us by our differences. A time when grappling with life's big questions and finding strength in what really matters will need to answer a world of fake fights, cancel culture, and intentional misinformation. Though we certainly have our institutional challenges ahead of us, I also suspect that we may be better prepared than we think to meet this moment. What if with our buffet of diverse beliefs, our constellations of committees, and those covenants we have so often put to the test, what if over the past 2 centuries of debate and argument, of growth and understanding, of hurting one another and restoring our relationships, what if, by preparing meeting minutes and baking casseroles for the potluck, teaching our children to behold the wonder of life, and from time to time, raising hell to raise up a better world, what if along the way, perhaps without realizing it, we have been training, building up our strength, coming into our power to help us respond in transformative ways to this moment? What if? What if the muscle memory for doing and being community, for being villagers who create and sustain the village, is part of who we are, and no small part of what the world so desperately needs now and in years to come? To build on this foundation, to live into this high calling, will require that we ask ourselves hard but powerful questions. Can our elder generation, that has shouldered and sustained so much of our institutions for so long, now actively and intentionally pass to our younger generations the mantle of leadership and genuine responsibility for our future? Can rising generations Can the rising generations seek out the wisdom and guidance of our elders, taking in the hard-won wisdom that has been born through the struggles they have known? Can we all practice a radical hospitality, a transforming degree of welcome that makes space for everyone, no matter their background, their politics, or their social location, as long as they are moved to action by the values that we share and seek to uphold? Can we exercise a degree of humility, relinquishing the arrogance that has too often been our calling card, to make room for new truths to emerge and ideas that challenge us to broaden our understandings? Can we plumb the spiritual depths of life, growing our trust in that abiding grace that touches and transforms us and calls us to work from a place of love to build a better world? In short, can we seize upon this moment to live into deepening integrity, to live from our most heartfelt values in ways that serve life and will help to heal the torn and tattered strands of the great web of life? Friends, these sacred questions are meant to guide us. May they also unsettle us in our service to this living tradition of which we are a part. And in these most consequential times, may we all endeavor to be known as village people, the people who take our place in love and service around a beautifully and blessed crowded table that welcomes everyone who seeks to serve life on this good green earth. May we live our lives to make it so. Amen.
Please rise in body or spirit today for our closing hymn, Fire of Commitment. It is number 1028 in your teal hymnals, and the words will also be on the screen behind me.
Thank you to the summer choir. And our closing words today are taken by the Reverend Shawn Gauthier from the reflection, or related to the reflection shared earlier. What if the muscle memory for doing and being community, for being villagers who create and sustain the village, is part of who we are, and no small part of what the world so desperately needs, now and in the years to come? Can we seize this moment to live into deepening integrity, to live from our most heartfelt values in ways that serve life and will help to heal the torn and tattered strands of the great web of life? In these most consequential times, may we all endeavor to be known as village people, the people who take our place in love and service around a beautifully and blessedly crowded table that welcomes everyone who seeks to serve life on this good green earth. May we live our lives to make it so. Now, as we prepare to extinguish our chalice, let's These words from Elizabeth Sell Jones guide us forward. We extinguish this flame but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Okay, and that's a wrap. So, may we always remember that we are people of love, providing a place in this world for our spirit, a place called home. As now we return to the challenge and joy of helping the world come alive in love, let us go forward with love in our hearts, sowing seeds of justice from our hands and peace in our steps. Go in peace, my friends. Go making peace. Happy Sunday.